The Real ResQ podcast is brought to you by SR3 Rescue Concepts, because you don't know what you don't know. Is your agency or company looking for helicopter training? Or maybe someone to come audit your program? How about a standardization and safety check? Or maybe just an annual FAA refresher? Look no further, because SR3 Rescue Concepts has what you need. They are here to help your program succeed, to keep you up to date with the current techniques, rules, regulations, and equipment. The training staff is top-notch, with certified flight instructor pilots and experienced crewmen that can provide training in rescue, tactical, and firefighting operations, as well as night vision goggle use and more. As part of the Petzl Technical Partner Program, they can also provide personal protective equipment inspection courses and training on the highly specific Lizard, made specifically by Petzl for helicopter use for cliff rescue operations. Another great advantage of SR3 Rescue Concepts is they go beyond the helicopter world. They have training programs for high-angle mountain rescue and their tactical medicine training program, which is structured around fundamental training for tactical combat casualty care and tactical emergency casualty care. To top it all off, they offer a safety audit program, a third-party review, fact-based and unbiased, to ensure any operation is functioning as safely and efficiently as possible. Contact them today at sr3rescueconcepts.com. Again, that's sr3rescueconcepts.com. And over on Instagram at sr3_rescue. That's on Instagram at sr3_rescue. You just make sure when you send them a message, you tell them, Quinny sent me here, and they will certainly take good care of you. What an honor it was to have my next guest on. United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 39. One of the guys from the very beginning. It was such a great conversation with him. We got to laugh. He was telling stories, old school stuff. And in this next upcoming podcast, he gets into a whole bunch of stuff, but he touches on the very first rescue swimmer deployment for a rescue in Sitka, Alaska. So I hope you guys all enjoy this story. And please welcome Mr. Steve Hathaway. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ podcast. Thank you for coming on. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Steve Hathaway, rescue swimmer number 39. Steve, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Awesome. I'm awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining me at the Real ResQ podcast. It's much appreciated, your time. It's an honor to have you here.
No, it's great to be here, man. Thanks.
Yeah, heck yeah. So for everybody out there, if you don't mind, please introduce yourself. Tell everybody where you are, what you've done, so on and so forth. Yeah, give us a good resume background. I like that.
Sure, man. I'm like you said, Steve Hathaway. I back in 1978, 77, I was working as a lifeguard, believe it or not, at a place called Waterslide World, and it was actually in Clearwater, pretty close to where the air station is. They decided to have a Coast Guard day. So at the time, I didn't know who this guy was, but the morale officer came out to me, and I was assistant manager at the time, and asked me, he goes, hey, listen, we want to have a morale day. We want to rent your place out for the Coast Guard. And you think that would be cool? And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And got the money, did all the deals. Long story short, they show up, they're partying, they're having a great time, drinking beer, going down the slides. My lifeguards that I had hired for the party, they came to me and they're like, man, we cannot control these guys. And I went up to the morale officer and said, hey, listen, man, they're not following. He said, don't worry. If anyone gets hurt, I'll take blame. I'm like, all right, man, let's go. Have fun. So we're going along. They are having a great time. We used to have a beach with rope swings and a inner tube ride and slides, and we had bumper boats and stuff. It was a pretty cool place. Well, their time was up. And I told the guy, I said, hey, man, you're coming up on your, and he goes, well, how much to go another 2 hours. And I'm like, well, it'll be this much. And boom, he whipped the cash out. And I'm like, okay, another 2 hours. And he says, but we're out of beer. And I'm like, well, I'm not making a beer run for you. He goes, oh, no, I'm going to have some delivered. And I'm not kidding you, man. This is an honest country. About a half hour later, here comes the H3 helicopter lowering a keg of beer. I'm not kidding.
That is bad.
You know, and I'm, you know, I graduated high school in 77. This is 78. And I'm looking up, and this morale officer guy is with me. And I'm like, and I see the guy in the door, and I see the helicopter, and I'm like, oh, this is for me. What, you know, how do I, he goes, oh, you just enlist, man. You go to aviation school, you could be doing that. You know, the guy hoisted and stuff. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Because at the time I was I'm like, look, I can't be this lifeguard at Waterside World for the rest of my life.
Oh,
I said, that's awesome for me, man. Swear to God, man, they delivered the keg. And
that's old school Coast Guard, by the way. Let's preface that. That is old school Coast Guard. Yeah, you can't get away with that stuff now.
Hell no. Oh, are you kidding me? And, but you,
oh my God,
where this water slide world was located, it was a cow pasture next to us and nothing. I mean, if you think about Clearwater now, you're like, oh, no, this was old Clearwater before it was all built up. And it was pretty, you know, big fields around us and stuff. So it wasn't like it was, you know, but anyways, yeah, they did. I said, well, man, I got to do that. So I joined the Coast Guard, went to boot camp, came back. Actually got stationed back in Clearwater. Nice. All my friends had these going away parties for me. So I'm like, yeah, going away. Joined the I got to be honor graduate. So I got my first pick and I'm looking at all these boat, air station Clearwater. And I'm like, crap. I really did want to go back home. I wanted Saipan. I wanted a Loran station, you know, one of those weird, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, so I'm like, crap, I don't want to go definitely don't want to go to a boat. So
I understand that.
Came back to I came back, you know, my head shaved. Yeah. All my buddies are like, hey, what are you doing back here? I'm like, man, I'm stationed out here, dude. So I waited a year and actually I went to AM school. I became a structural mechanic. And then I got stationed on C-130s and went to Kodiak and then came back to Clearwater. Got over like 2,000 hours in C-130s. I was a load master, drop master. And then this new program started to show up, you know, the ASMs are going to be rescue swimmers, you know? And I'm like, okay, I was going to get out because I was tired of going, believe it or not, the size of me, I used to go in fuel cells and have to repair. I hated it, man. And I said, if I'm going to stay in, I want to do something else. And so I went off to ASM school, and it was because they were taking a lot of people into school now because they wanted to build up this swimmer program. They're going to need the ASM rate went from, I don't know how many, but to say it quadrupled in size, you know, every station, there was just only 2 chiefs in the whole ASM rate.
Oh, wow.
Know?
Yeah.
And, you know, and they went from that to having a chief at every unit. And, you know, there were some units like Brooklyn just had 2 ASMs. That's it. That was all stationed there.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I went to that. And then, of course, I got my orders to Sitka. And I'm like, Alaska? I'm like, God. So I went to Alaska. You know,
from back home to cold. Let's put that in perspective. Florida, beautiful weather, sandy beaches.
Where I grew up.
To Alaska, which is cold, wet, rainy, beautiful beaches, but it's cold, wet.
Well, remember, I had been in Kodiak. And I remember stepping out of the airport. I'd never been in a cold, never lived. I remember stepping out of the airport and I'm like, God, it's cold. And when I stepped out the door, because the doors open and closed, all the snow was melted. So it was all ice at the entrance. I slipped and fell on my butt. I had cowboy boots on because, you know, that was back during urban cowboy and everybody was a cowboy. And
oh my God.
So I slipped and fell on and I'm like, oh, great. This is a start. I mean, Kodiak sucked, man. Back then, the base is nothing like the base is now. It was World War II era base. I mean, we played basketball in the gym. You'd have to wear a watch cap, a sweatshirt, a jacket, 2 pairs of sweatpants just to play. I mean, it wasn't heated, you know?
Yeah, that's not the Kodiak I was at. The Kodiak I was at was gorgeous.
So I go back to Alaska.
Okay.
And So when I show up there, this new swimmer program, everyone's like, oh, it's not going to last. It's not going to last. This is just a phase. And believe me, actually, I was a little worried because Coast Guard has done that. They had really good programs. They used to have a program where they were sending a lot of the flight mechs to become EMTs. So when they went, this is an older program. So when they went on cases, they were EMT, which I thought was a pretty good idea.
Great idea.
But the chiefs didn't like the idea that their mechanics had to do all this extra training to be EMTs. They had to go to research.
Right.
They had to do training, keep their quals up and stuff. So
monthly
the chiefs
training,
were like,
annual training. Every 2 years
like,
you got to go.
Yeah,
I get it.
The chiefs are like, yeah, we're done with this. We got work to do, and I want to be home by 2:00.
Yeah.
So they nixed that program, which was, so that kind of stuff. You're a little worried that they were, going to say the same thing about the swimmer, but the swimmer program was mandated by Congress, so there was nothing they were going to do about it.
Right.
So, anyways, Bob Weaver, who was my classmate in ASM school, we show up to Sitka. We actually rode the ferry together. We, ended up coming at the same day and checking in. And dude, you talk about, guys check in all the time. People, they'll just pass you in the hallway or whatever, not a deal. But here comes these two rescue swimmers, they're like, oh, this new rescue swimmer thing. And
redheaded stepchildren.
And we're like, what?
Yeah.
Jesus, thank goodness I'd had a few years in, I've been, C-130, I've been in aviation already and stuff like that. So I told them, whatever. And the guy who ran our shop, I'm not going to say his name, but he was a first class. He used to smoke cigarettes. Like he'd take one when it was almost done. Well, first of all, if you got a cigarette with a filter on it, he'd flip the filter off. That's unfiltered cigarettes.
Dang.
He'd smoke. He'd take the next one and light it. And that's how much he chain smoked in the shop. We hated it, man. His ashtray, we were the new third, we were the boots. So we had to empty his ashtray. I just like this guy.
Yeah.
And he did not like us because he did not want anything to do with being a swimmer. Well, he's a first class. All he had to do is take the test to make chief,
Right.
And he wouldn't have had to be one. But no, he was.
I want to touch on that just a little bit because there's a lot of people that don't understand that when the new program came in, they just need bodies to fill seats. So, you come into that program when the swimmer program was made, and there are the guys that were it was just a new guys. And you had a choice at one point. You either had to go to rescue swimmer school, which was in the Navy at the time. So Pensacola, Florida is where the first Navy or the first rescue swimmer program was for the Coast Guard. And if you didn't, you either had to make chief or change rates. And that was a big deal because there were a lot of people who are like, wait a minute, you're kicking me out of the rate that I just signed up to do. And you've only had me here for 2 years. And they're like, nope, you need to go to swimmer school then. And a lot of guys were like, no, I'm not doing that. And they got pissed off at the rest of us that did it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And you got that exactly right. So they were blaming us for what the Coast Guard policy was, but the Coast Guard just had, they knew it was kind of a sucky thing. And they're like, look, we're going to give you this many years, to become chief. 5, I think it was 5 or something, or you got to go to swimmer school and we'll help you out and, whatever. But, it kind of did bite for those guys in the beginning, but no reason to take it out on us.
Right.
We were
totally. Yeah.
We showed up and of course we were new swimmers. And as soon as we got to Sitka, they didn't know what to do with it. They said, well, first of all, you guys got to become flight mechs, and we're like, okay. So we had to go into the flight mech syllabus, get all our flights, get all this. And let me tell you something. And, I was a swimmer I was an AST swimmer for 15 years. And there's a lot of things I've learned about swimmers. The mentality it takes to be a swimmer, when you tell a guy he's got to do something, man, it gets done and then some. You know what I mean? There's a challenge. Give them a challenge.
Yeah.
And it's going to get. So they're like, we got to get you guys flight mech qualified before. So we were coming in. So Bob and I were coming in on our days off. We were coming in at night after we got off work to do engine runs, to get our engine run letters. We were coming in whenever we could do a post flight. We were working. We got our test knocked out.
Yeah.
So we became Bob and I both, I became a flight mech after 3 months, and Bob
Holy
was
cow.
like 4 months.
That's
Because
awesome.
I had a little advantage because I was an airplane mechanic. I understood the engines a little better and stuff like that, you know, and a lot of the structure stuff. But we knocked it out. They're like, holy crap, man, these guys, you know, we were fully operational. I mean, we were flying duty as flight mechs and starting to implement the swimmer program.
That is awesome.
And
God, that's awesome.
And then these pilots and stuff, you know, they all were like, this is such, I mean, each pilot, every flight mech, every avionics man, because back in the H3, you had an avionics man, you had a flight mech, pilot, co-pilot. They each needed 3 flights. So, dude, and so then we showed up, a couple more swimmers showed up. We were teabags, man. We got to work. We were in the water from morning till night.
Yeah.
Go home. And then at night, we were doing all the night flights, you know? I mean, we were in the water. People don't realize if you're ever at a unit that had to implement, just think about the unit you're at. If you're a swimmer and you had to qualify every one of your flight mechs and pilots.
Oh yeah.
And they each needed three flights. Think how many flights that is.
It's a lot.
And
go ahead. Now I'll give you a little.
Only had like maybe 4 swimmers.
Oh, okay.
You only had like 4 swimmers. So we'd go out, you know, we actually go out on the boat and we jump in, we do swimmer, get back on the boat. Here comes the next haircut, swimmer, pro, you know, drop in, relocation, all that. I mean, it wasn't a quick flight either. It was, you know, they had to do all these hoists. So we were in the water a lot, man. And so we were doing that. We were, you know, doing that and then staying in duty as flight mechs, you know, and still, you know, the guys who were not going to be swimmers, the 2 first class in our shop, they were just laying it on us, man. Work, you know, they were like, you know, just trying to.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like I said, they didn't know our mentality. They didn't know like, you're not going to break me.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah. I'd be down doing a pump, you know, rebuilding a pump from a SAR case or something. And I'd get down on the hangar. We had a pump shop that was down on the hangar deck across the deck. And the ASM shop, I'll say, was across the hangar upstairs in Sitka. And I remember him calling me, you know, saying, hey, Hathaway, I need you up here, you know. So I had to put my shirt on. You know what I'm talking about. You used to have to wear white T-shirts when you're working down, you get elsewhere. So I put my shirt on, you know, straighten up. Because if you had to go upstairs, because admin was up there too, you couldn't go up there in a T-shirt.
Got to look good in uniform. Yep.
Went back up there, and he's sitting there doing some paperwork, and he goes, here, I need copies made of these, you know.
What?
So, yeah.
Oh, that's lame.
That's what kind of stuff. I mean, they tried to really bust our butts, but, you know, we wouldn't let them. I mean, people don't realize, and the pilots. So anyways, we did everything. And then finally, we started staying in our swimmer duty. You know, we got enough swimmers in, we got enough people qualified. We start staying in our swimmer duty. And I just happened to have duty one day and the alarm goes off and we take off.
Is this your first case?
First case.
Oh, I'm excited already.
All right.
Wait. Before we get into that, I do want to touch it.
You have. Yeah.
Oh, this is your very first case? Oh, this is great. Let me pause right here then, because I'm going to back up and then I'm going to come to this because I want to read this before you get into it. Okay. So you're talking about implementing, you know, everybody and having to do all the training that goes inside with implementing really the rescue swimmer program. I was part of the initiation or the initial training for night vision goggle hoisting. And all of the pilots had to get qualified on night vision goggles in order to hoist. I was in Kodiak, Alaska at the time. And I remember going in the bay. It was a shitty night. It was snow blowing sideways. It's just one of those, like, it was a good training day because it was a controlled environment. We were 5 minutes from the air station. I had a boat on scene and I literally had 4 aircrafts backed up and I'm the swimmer in the water. And we had like I'm going to call it, it wasn't a very big swell. It was like 4 or 5 foot swell. And I got sick as shit. And when I tell you, it was like one of the few times that I was on the hoist hook throwing up before I got up to the cabin so that I could go back out and do another deployment. Each helicopter had to do, I think, 4 deployments. 4, 5, 6, maybe 6 deployments, whatever it was. But helicopter. The last guy I got in the helicopter with, I had another swimmer with me who was also training another 4 helicopters over yonder, like just a ways away. John Hall. And he looks at me, he's like, dude, are you all right? And I was like, I'll be all right. And we came back, we debriefed anyway. So again, to back up, I understand exactly what you're talking about when you're implementing the program and all the training that it's required to do for the entire air station and or Coast Guard. It's crazy.
So, I went through the MVG and direct deployment.
Whoo, come on, baby.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Direct deployment was already there. Yeah.
So all those, I mean, if I counted how many hoists, I got to have, I don't know. But anyways.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Oh, killer. Well, all right. So now we're going to get into your first case. And I'm totally pumped on this too. There's another reason I'm really pumped on this, because my first case, which I hadn't been in aviation for more than probably really about a year. And that includes my airman program. So the airman program wasn't around when you were, but that was a newer thing for me. And then I got up to Kodiak. I got qualified. I went through EMT school and poof, now I'm standing duty. It was my second day of duty and I get launched out, and it was a gnarly case similar to yours. So I could share that with you as well, which just makes it so much more. So with that, let me read this and then we'll get right into it. Is that cool?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Awesome. All right. So citation to accompany the award of the Coast Guard Achievement Medal to George S. Hathaway, aviation survivalman. That's right. Aviation survival before they went to survival technician.
That's right.
Aviation survivalman, 2nd class, United States Coast Guard. Petty Officer Hathaway is cited for superior performance on duty on the afternoon of 6 March 1987 while serving as rescue swimmer aboard the Coast Guard rescue helicopter, the H-3, number 1434. Engaged in rescue of 3 survivors from a downed civilian Jet Ranger helicopter in Peril Straits, Alaska. Flying through the heavy snow showers with visibility often down to 1/4 mile, the crew located the helicopter wreckage in a tidal pool. Petty Officer Hathaway entered the frigid water to inspect the submerged cabin for survivors. Finding no occupants, he was recovered and then downstream search was commenced. Shortly thereafter, the survivors were sighted on Rapids Island near Sturgis Narrows. Hoisting was not feasible because of the overhanging trees and near whiteout conditions. So Petty Officer Hathaway voluntarily entered into the swift waters of the Sturgis Narrow despite the flooding tides and numerous eddies caused by the 7-knot current. Reaching shore, he determined that the survivors needed immediate treatment for hypothermia and possible back injuries. While attempting to swim back to the helicopter, he was swept away by the raging current. The pilot turned the helicopter and water taxied at high speed to intercept him before he was swept through Sturgis Narrow. Although fatigued by the prolonged struggles against the current, Petty Officer Hathaway volunteered to re-enter the water and towed a life raft to the survivors for their transport to the helicopter. He then assisted the corpsman, which is the medical guys that help us out from the clinic. He then assisted the corpsman in treating them for hypothermia. Petty Officer Hathaway's exceptional fortitude and courage, in spite of personal risk, were instrumental in saving 3 lives. His diligence, perseverance, and devotion to duty are most heartily commended in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Coast Guard.
Yeah.
Dang, man.
Yeah, that was...
And I'm going to touch one more thing, and then I really want to dive into this. But this was the very first rescue swimmer deployment for a rescue in Alaska after the program was implemented. That's correct. That is badass. Yeah. That is awesome.
Yeah, I got deployed first, swam over, had to dive down to look to see if there was anyone in the helicopter because it was only hanging by one sponson. It was underwater.
Gosh. All right. So let's back up. Let's back up. All right. So the SAR alarm goes off. Where are you at? Because now I know it's not like it is now. There was a swimmer shop and there's somebody on call. There's, it's all dedicated now. And back then we were just getting this program rolling. So what is it you're doing and how is it that you became or to be the ready swimmer?
Well, it was just my duty day,
Okay.
It just happened to be my duty day. I think we were 1 and 3 because we didn't have enough swimmers to fill the 1 and 4 yet.
And you're saying
we were still training. We had guys there, but we were still training them.
Okay.
So I got to tell you, I really don't know what I was doing. I can't remember what I was doing. I just remember an alarm going off.
Nice.
And
that's good.
What you do is when you hear the alarm go off, and something we would do is the alarm go off, and then you would wait a minute for them to explain where you're going and what you're doing, because you didn't want to throw your wetsuit on, your dry suit on, because dry suit is a relative term, dude. I was wearing an old, it's called Imperial dry suit, and it was, this put it semi-dry suit. All our suits leaked around the feet, and then they were neoprene, so they would, climbing in out of the helicopter and all those training, scenarios, jumping, climbing in and out of boats. We had so many black patches on holes that we looked like we'd been shot by a machine gun,
We got a Dalmatian coming to the helicopter.
Yeah. So I was just, I don't know. So you would listen and you're like, okay, it's in surge scenarios. I'm going to go ahead and put my dry suit on. That's close enough, because if it was somewhere at Juneau or way down in Ketchikan, you'd probably want to wear your Mac 10, which was a heavy duty flight suit that we wore at the time, and then change out in the helicopter when you get closer.
Okay.
So, I
flying the
listened, and I'm like, okay,
flying the H3, you can get up and walk around in the H3, so it's not very hard to change. The Dolphin, it's a pain in the neck to change in. So, little side note.
I've done it.
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
6'4".
Hey, me too.
Guy.
And
I'm like,
we get along so well.
I'm butt naked, and I'm in the back of this helicopter, and I'm like, God, don't crash now, because I don't know what they'll think. Because I've been in my flight suit and I had to put a wetsuit on,
Yeah.
And, you don't wear.
Yeah.
So I took everything, and actually people ask me, you're so tall, how do you? I said, I haven't met anyone yet that can stand up in the back of H65 yet. I have never.
Yeah.
So I got pretty good at it. I was really quick. And when I used to train young swimmers,
oh man,
they're like, okay, syllabus is all done. I said, yeah, but I got one more thing for you. I said, first of all, you're on duty. Let me see your bag, and then I'd help them. I'm like, okay, you want this here. You want your fins on top. You take your fins out, set them out. This is the order you want your bag in. So when you're in the back, and always be this way, because sometimes it's going to be dark and you're just going to go by, feel,
That's
and
awesome.
then I would make them, I'm like, okay, now grab it. Let's go out and they were in their flight suit. I said, let's go out to the helicopter. Okay. I want you to change out. Okay. We got some people in the water, and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. So I make them get in the back of the helicopter and change out, and then
that's
I
awesome.
said, okay, now I'll sign it off, So I just wanted I don't want the first time have to deal with this, be on a case,
Yeah.
because
Smart.
a lot of times you're limited on fuel. But anyways, I heard it was in surge stuff. So I went ahead and changed out. We went out, got in the helicopter. I had probably Commander Brumka, one of the best pilots ever. And on that case, he did save my life.
Wow.
And
that's
we
awesome.
took off, and that snowstorm that downed the forestry helicopter.
Yep.
We are flying through it this time. And we're going slower, lower. And finally we're in the water, because, H3s can land in the water. Yep. And I'm sitting in the jump seat. I pull out the charts of the surge scenarios and everything. So we see red marker number 6. And I'm like, okay, I know where we're at. Okay. So there should be another marker. So we're proceeding on, taxiing in the water. Because we couldn't fly.
Wow.
Water taxiing.
Holy
cow.
So
we're following the markers. Then finally the storm lets up. We can lift off. And by that time, we're right where the helicopter crashed. We set back down. I swim over real quick, check it, come back, say they're not in it. So we know they're down, down current.
Yeah.
And the current was ripping, man. I mean, I don't know, this area in Sitka, it's in the inland waterway. The water just cranks through there. So
a lot of people actually don't know that when you Alaska, but Southeast specifically, some of the water currents out there from high tide to low tide get up to 22 knots. They rip through there. And a lot of people don't understand that. It's like a river.
When he said 7 knots, when it said 7 knots on there, it was definitely faster than that. So anyway,
yeah.
When we taxied I mean, when we finally flew, I mean, what happened when they crashed? They egressed a helicopter and they grabbed onto one of the sponsons, you know, the floating sponsons they have on Bell helicopters.
Yes.
There was four people.
Okay.
And it took them, there's this island that's in the middle of the channel, and the sponson went by it, and 3 of them were able to make it, you know, get off and make it to the island. They had a very short little swim, but nice. They made it. The 4th guy couldn't swim, so he held onto the sponson. Okay. And they watched him, and when he went around the corner, he got caught with one of those eddies, and it took the sponson and him down. Oh, it was like a toilet bowl, you know, like the eddies were that bad.
Wow.
When they went through there, they were spinning like tornadoes, and they would suck you down, and you're gone.
So those guys actually just watched their friend die in front of them. Oh, yeah. That's terrible. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I know it is really bad. And so anyway, we go up, we see him on the rocks on the beach up there. Yep. And we're like, okay, there they are. This snowstorm was incredible. So, and they're up in the tree line, and as soon as we came over the top, I mean, it blew all that new fresh snow. It made a whiteout. I mean, so we had to back way away. They couldn't even come over the island. They're like, well, how are we going to hoist you down? You know, I'm like, well, put me in the water. You know, I'm going to get over there to them.
Yeah.
Whatever we got to do. If I got to stay with them, I'll stay with whatever we got to do. We're going to do it.
Yep.
So they landed in the water, and then I swam over, and I went up and I assessed it, you know, and this guy had back injuries, you know, for the plane crash, and they were definitely hypothermic. You can imagine swimming and then laying in the, you know, and I'm like, okay, we got to get these guys out of here. And they're like, look, I don't know how we're going to hoist them. I said, well, I got an idea. And we used to carry, and I know the stand team, you know how they gave us our little life rafts?
Oh yeah.
The little one man back in the day. We're just like, now we carried a 7-man life raft. You know, we took all the gear out of it, so we were able to pack it to be pretty small. And we're like, if you leave us, drop us this one, you know? So that was on board. So I had an idea. I talked to the pilot with my PRC 90. I had to climb out and get on top of a rock so we could talk. And I'm telling him, I said, I got an idea. What if I swim back, grab the raft, swim it back here, inflate it, and then we'll pull it back to the helicopter? And he goes, sounds like great. Let's do it. You know, so I started to swim back to the helicopter, and I'm swimming hard. I mean, because the current, they're sitting here in the currents. I'm swimming my butt off, man. I'm talking hard. And I was making it. I was good. And Keith Reese, the flight mech, he's standing in the door, and he puts his hand out to, you know, grab me. I'm swimming. I see him, and I reach up to grab his hand. And as soon as I stop swimming, I'm swept underneath the helicopter. So now I'm pushing myself off the bottom of the helicopter, being swept back.
Holy
cow.
Underneath
the helicopter, under the sponson, pushing myself off, hoping that I don't get hung up on anything, you know. So
my God.
And all of a sudden I pop back up, and there's the tail rotor. I'm right underneath the tail rotor, and it's real loud and stuff. And then I look over, and I'm heading towards these eddies, you know.
Holy cow.
And I'm like, God dang, man. I'm like, this is it. I'm done. I said, I'm done. This is it. But that pilot, he was freaking awesome. You got to know with the H3, when they land on the water, they create like a suction. You ever tried to pull something off the water?
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? It's hard sometimes.
Yep.
So that's the same thing, believe it or not. The helicopters used to do that. They used to have to give a lot of power just to, a lot of times, rock it to break it free.
Oh, okay.
But he was able to lift up, break it free, do a tail whip. He whipped around and then splashed it right in front of me, the helicopter. And so I was able to get back on board.
Oh my God.
So I got back on board, and at the whole time I was swimming my ass off trying to make it, you know, away from those eddies, you know. So I got back on board, and I'm like, thank God. That's what I'm saying. He saved my life. He saved my life.
Holy cow.
And so I get back in, I throw the headset on, you know, like, are you okay? And I'm like, well, I gotta be. We still got to get these guys. You know, there's no, I could be dying. It doesn't matter. I got, you know, that's what I'm trying to say. The swimmer mentality, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
It's the way it is.
It
and
is
I'm
the
not
way it
saying
is.
that bragging on myself.
No.
I'm saying that from all the people I ever trained. It's like, you can get anyone physically ready for swimmer school. It's finding that person who has the, you know, I'm not quitting, you know, I'm going to be, you know, so.
Agreed.
So anyways, they took me back up. I swam the raft over, but this time I said, we hooked the trail line to it. And I swam back. I inflated it, put it on the shore, and I took another trail line with me and inflated it, went and carried these guys, put them in the life raft.
Yeah.
And then the flight mech pulled the life raft back to the door while I held the other trail line so the raft wouldn't whip back into the tail rotor or away.
Super smart.
So I held it on shore, and they got the raft there. They were able to get them off. The corpsmen started treating them. So this time I'm like, and they're like, I got on the radio. I said, take the knife. Because, back in H3, they kept the knife right there in the doorway.
Okay.
The old survival knife. And he popped the raft, I said, let it go. And they just let it go. And then I had to swim back. And I said, this time I got it. They got a little closer, and I started way up. And I said, this ain't happening again. So then I got on board, and then we started treating the 3 guys. We searched for a short time, but one of the guys, as others would tell us, he went down, with the sponsor, and then we flew back, and then, that was the case. We flew back, got him back. And it was funny, we're all sitting there, and we were sitting at the door, and I'm talking to the flight mech, because we never debriefed, we just got off and we went home. And he said, God, man, when you went under that sponson, and we both looked, and you could see my hands where they hit the sponson, and my handprints were, because you know how the white sponson gets dirty from the exhaust?
Yeah.
There was a drag mark where
my God. Steve, holy cow.
So anyways, that was that case. And that was a lot of fun. And then there was, and then at that point, we're starting to make, it was cases like that started, we started winning the pilots and the crew over, going, how else would we got those guys off? Well, they wouldn't.
Right. No,
they wouldn't have got those guys. There was nothing else. There were no boats in the area.
Right.
There was nothing. They would have never got those guys off.
Yeah.
And then there was another case that this was later on in the years, later on, maybe a year later, 2 years later, one of the new swimmers, and I was the training guy. I was the stand-board training. So I trained all these guys.
Yeah.
And they had launched out, and they had 2 guys in the water, two fishermen.
Okay.
And the fishermen were waving like this, when they saw the helicopter, and they'd been in the water a while. And the pilots go, look, they're waving to us. We don't need to put the swimmer in. We're going to put the basket down. We're not going to use the swimmer. They'll climb, they'll each climb in.
Right.
Well, they did. They put the basket down. Both guys trying to get in the basket, but they're hypothermic,
Right.
They probably took everything they had, and they're trying to get in. So now they're half in the basket, half out. They can't get in. They're both trying to get in at the same time.
Oh gosh.
So now they're like, what do we do? We got this. So they said, well, we got to put the swimmer in. So the swimmer gets, comes from the back, sits in the door, deploys, free falls with the basket and cable out, because they had the guys stuck in it.
Holy cow.
So he got down there, separated them, put one of the guys in the basket, hoisted him up, came back, got the other guy, hoisted him, got the swimmer, came back, and got him.
Beautiful.
And because of all that action they were doing, and about hypothermia, your body shuts down, extremities, but when you start moving around, that cold blood, one of the guys happened to pass away in the back.
Oh man.
He had a heart attack. Yeah, he had and then the other guy was, cold, and the swimmer got back on, and he's like, he didn't have a corpsman, at the time.
Yeah.
And he's looking, he's like, oh crap. And he started doing CPR and stuff. So when they got back, I wasn't mad, but I told the swimmer, I said, look, man, you're the EMT on there. You've got to tell them that no bueno, this is no good. You can't do that, And then they had like a pilots meeting, and they're like, look, guys, we have these swimmers. We got to start. So that was another case. I hate to bring that point up, but I mean, that was another case proven that, hey, these swimmers, we really, and then Jeff Tunks, he had his Bluebird, case, which
Yep.
was freaking awesome. Everyone
I'm
knows
actually,
about that.
I'm hoping to get him on here to talk about that. So he's going to be one of my next ones.
He had just relieved me from duty. His case happened after mine, but he got all his accolades and DSCs and all the awards and all that stuff. And I think they felt sorry for me, so they threw me a commendation medal.
Aw,
so
that's so nice
afterwards,
of them. You know what? This is a badass case, so I'm psyched to be talking to you about it. So.
Yeah, so Jeff, he just relieved me, and I heard he just relieved me. I heard the alarm go off as I'm walking home, because Sitka, the air station here, and housing is, it's not far away. So I was walking home, and I heard the alarm go off, and I said, "Ooh," because it was a nasty, nasty night.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of nasty. The way it was. You were in Alaska, and he went out, and Jeff told me, he goes, "Why can't?" Because see, Jeff was an ASM that became a swimmer. He was one of the guys to go, look, you got to change rates or you got to make rate. But he went ahead, he got in shape. He went to swimmer school, became a swimmer, came to Sitka.
Yeah.
Solid,
solid guy.
Yeah. Oh, he was a great guy, man. Yeah. When you're in a place like that, I tell you what, you want cohesiveness, have a guy in the shop that you just don't like, and everyone just kind of, we had this guy, man, that just
bonds together,
just poured it on us. So, but anyway, Jeff and Bob Weaver was a good guy, and I mean we had some good guys there. Brad Morse and Mike Mill and Jerry Sonavi. They were some of the first guys there, and
you guys are the ones that paved the way for the rest of us, which is much appreciated, by the way, because I love what I do.
No, it was. I mean, it was going to have. That's what I tell people all the time. I said, if it wasn't me, the other swimmer, whoever other swimmer was on duty, he would have did the exact same thing. Everyone, it's just happened to be you're on duty that day. That's why I'm saying that when people have cases, I'm like, it could have been any of the swimmers. The same thing would have happened, and they would have, completed, because that's just the way we are. So
I totally agree with that. And actually, it's interesting you say that too, because, I had an interview, episode number 2 with Brett Bates. Brett Bates is a younger swimmer. He's rescue swimmer number 760, and he had a really good case. And, it took me a long time to talk about all of my cases as well. We don't boast a lot of this stuff. We go out, we do the job, and then we move on, and we go to the next one. If it wasn't our day of duty and our boys went out, we come back, we kick back some beers, we talk about the case, and then we move on together. And that's the way it is with that all around the world too. It's amazing to me. And the mindset you talk about and how to get it done, and then to continue to do it again and again and again and again. It's awesome. And I love it. And this is why I love telling these stories. I love it.
Yep. I had a swimmer come to me in Savannah. He couldn't do 50 sit-ups, and maybe, he had been on a boat to his, defense, and he didn't get a chance, underway, and he didn't work out. He could have worked out, but he did, he showed up. Great swimmer, though. Great swimmer, just, he could really swim well, but he just didn't have the physical. Yeah. And so, Mike Grabowski and these guys, Roger Wilson, this was the airman program. So he showed up, and as the chief, I would sit back, and he'd come knocking on my door. Chief, they're picking on me. And I'm like, dude, if you can't handle it, you probably need to go. I know exactly what they're doing to you. They made him and another airman. We'd go for a run, and we had kayaks, but they had to carry the kayaks over their head, when we went for our runs and stuff.
Nice.
And we didn't overdo it but we got him in shape, man. When he left, he could do the push-ups. But you know what? And they dogged him bad, but he's like, I ain't quitting. They can't do this to me. And I'm like, he's going to make it. Cause I had other guys show up, do all the push-ups, sit-ups, all this and that. We're college swimmers. I get a call, Chief, I'm quitting. And I'm like, really? Yeah. He can't, I can't do it. This is not for me. And I'm like, you know what? It's all, you can't train this.
No, you can't.
You can't train. And I say, you want to find a guy that's going to be a swimmer, play a board game or go play volleyball or something. And if I'm so sorry, if he gets mad for losing, if he gets really mad for losing and like kicks something or something, that's the guy I want. Because when you go on a case, when you're sitting in the door, you know, how do you judge that? When you're sitting in the door, you're like, oh hell no, you know, I'm winning. I'm going to win this, and I'm going to get all those people, right? So
that's I know what you're saying. It's the guys.
So,
totally.
So I trained a lot of swimmers because, you know, I was also in Hawaii, and we implemented Hawaii also. So that was a lot easier, man. It was so much nicer. I came from Cape Cod. I was actually in Cape Cod also. Cape Cod, nasty, you know.
Yeah.
And I left there to go to Hawaii, and I'm like, oh. First time I went from Sitka. I had orders to Clearwater, and I'm like, yes, I'm going home. You know, I'm going to be a swimmer in Clearwater. It's going to be great. Well, Bush got elected, and they needed swimmers in Cape Cod for the Bush patrols. In other words, when he'd go out on his boat, we had to maintain a helicopter at the pad ready to save him, you know? And so they needed swimmers right away. And so the yeoman called me at home. They're packing my stuff at my house. And they're like, hey, you need to get in here. And I'm like, well, what's up? You know? And this is back in the old days, typewriter. And he's whiting out Clearwater. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? He's like, I'm standing over this yeoman, and he's sitting there. You need to go talk to the chief. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's typing in Cape Cod. And I'm like, what the hell is Cape Cod? You know? And I'm like, give me a map. And I started at Florida, and I'm going up, 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 up. And I'm like, no, you know? And so, they sent me to Cape Cod. And then I'm like, God, it was cold there, man. I'm telling you, it was cold. Had a great time. Had a great crew in Cape Cod. Had a good time. I mean, you know the way it is. You show up. We can make. You get together with swimmers. It don't matter.
We're having a good time. You got a good
shot. From Cape Cod, I went to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then we implemented Hawaii because Hawaii was getting implemented, and I went to Hawaii, and that was better because, man, I put on a wetsuit, a little shorty, and I'm out there, and I'm like, you kidding me, man? This is great, you know. Then from Hawaii, I went to Savannah, and then I made Warren, and then went to Mobile, and then finally retired out of San Diego. So
what a great career. Great career.
Yeah, well, hey, you know what? That's what I tell people in my retirement. I said, man, I couldn't have done nothing better, you know.
I love it.
Yeah, it was definitely a great time.
That's awesome. Now I do want to touch on one other thing, and because you and I were talking about this just before we started recording and stuff, and you had mentioned how you were a big key component for basically the voice of the rescue swimmer to keep the program going all over the Coast Guard. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Like, what do you mean? Like, I know they were, well, you know, like when I went to Hawaii, we were facing the exact same thing again. Oh, we don't want to do this swimmer thing. And I'm like, oh God, here we go.
Oh, again, that's what you were referring to when we were, I got it. Okay.
And then, you know, you had the C-130 people at Barbers Point, and they're like, oh yeah, these guys, man, you know, but what helped out is I knew all these C-130 guys because I was in C-130s in Kodiak and Clearwater, and I had I know way more over 2,000 hours flying with most of these guys.
Yeah.
So I had a voice with them, especially, you know, first classes and chiefs, because when I was with them, they've made rank, and I'm like, hey man, you know, you don't understand. This is a good thing. And so I'd talk to them, and they knew me. They didn't look at us as these prima donnas and all this and everything. Yeah. And we did stuff like, you know, there was real important things. It's like when we went to work out, you know, I said, guys, when you're in your workout gear and we're going to work out, stay off the hangar deck. No need to rub it in their face. You know, we get in our car, we go to the pool.
Yep.
You know, there were certain things that we had to give a little too, you know, but you know, once we've established, then you can walk wherever you want with your, you know, but I said at the beginning, I was, you know, it was very important. I knew where they were coming from, you know, the C-130 people, because, you know, and the C-130 is a thankless job, man. That's when I was on it for years, and I do a case, and we'd search and search and search, and we'd find these guys, you know.
Yeah.
And we drop them a radio or something, and then the helicopter's sitting over on an island, shut down, you know, hanging out with their flight suits off, getting some sun. And then we'd be like, okay, we found them. We're circling them. Well, they get in their helicopter, started up, come over, hoist them, go back. News crews.
Yeah.
You know, they get awards.
Oh,
you know?
yep.
And we'd come back and land, and we're post-flight in our plane and fueling it. And I'm just like, you know, so I knew where they were coming from. You know what I mean? So we tried to we eased into it. And I think me being an XC-130 guy really helped that out a lot. So anyway.
You know, when I got to Kodiak, I had a great crew up there, you know, as a first swimmer unit. And I was required to get qualified on the C-130. So I was a basic air crewman on the C-130. And from time to time, it was your month. And that's the way you did it. Like while we were up there, because there were times in Kodiak where you'd be launching out, you'd have a swimmer out going down the Aleutian chain, another one going over to Cordova, and another one up in Anchorage, and you're the only guy left. And they needed a guy for the C-130. So you would have a month block. And I remember doing cases on the C-130, and you're flying all day long. So, you know, I mean, so I am with you, and my C-130 is limited, but I will check that box. I was a qualified air crewman on the C-130. So
then, you know,
I do
know, and what they do, and, you know, it's a thankless, they do a lot. And
they do a lot.
You go out on a case and they're circling you, man. They're your angels, man. They're you know, they're hanging out while you're out there offshore, way offshore, and you know they did that for us a few times, like in Savannah and different places, you know. And
it's amazing to hear a C-130 come by too when you're out there, because you know we got launched on a case and I'm in the water, and then you hear that C-130 just ripping by, and they're 100 feet off the water, and you're like, yes, we've got backup. You know, love it. Anyway.
Yeah, they're our angels, man. They're our eyes in the sky, man. They watch over us. So I appreciate them, man. And so, but anyways, man. And you know, there's each station has its stories, and I'm sure you don't have enough time to cover them all. But man, you know, hopefully, you know,
I'll cover whatever you want, Steve. Like I've got all the time in the world right now.
Oh my God, man. You know, the greatest thing about the rescue swimmer guys is no matter where you got stationed, when the day one you walked in, you were amongst brothers. You know what I mean?
Fact.
The day you walked into that shop, these are like-minded guys that are, you know, making the same amount of money as you. Or about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And go through the same stuff as you. And God forbid, you know, the funniest thing is, you remember going to Petaluma for research?
Oh yeah, all the time.
You go to Petaluma for research, right? Well, we would go to Petaluma for research, sitting through the class, blah blah blah, and we're all looking at each other. We're like, volleyball. After we're all meeting to play volleyball in the gym after this, and we're looking at each other like, you're going down. You know, and you had all these type A personalities playing a sport that no one wanted to lose. I mean, you're constantly like, you know, you're holding guys up and fighting each other. I mean, over a volleyball game. And then it spiraled downhill. Then we would, you know, some of the guys would leave, and you know, they're going to go do study or something stupid like that. And then so we would all go into the volleyball court, you know, the racquetball court, and play volleyball. So then, that was fun for a while. Then that digressed into dodgeball. You know,
yes.
And we put the balls in the middle, and then we're winging the balls at each other, man. Oh my God, I remember just.
There's a good rubber ones too, because you knew if you pelted somebody just right, you'd leave a mark. You'd be like,
you could grab it with one hand and just whip it, man. It's like, yeah.
You're hoping to leave a mark on like a cheek or something like that, so the next day in class you're like, oh, you got nails.
So, you know, during the EMT research, we'd come in maybe to play basketball, and all the other people who were there to play basketball like, we're out here. We don't want to play with you guys. Because, you know, no one wanted to lose, man. And that's what type of guy is a swimmer. You know what I mean? They're not going to lose. They're not going to be sitting in that doorway and go, no, I can't do this. They're like, no, I'm going to be the last guy out, you know? that's me. I'm going to be the last. That's why I always thought I'm the last man out. I always wanted to say that in swimmer school. When at the Navy swimmer school, you know how everyone's up and you know, I always wanted to yell last man out, you know, because I always wanted to be the last man out, you know.
That's awesome.
And you know, on any of the cases. So yeah, and you know, I stood duty when, you know, my whole swimmer career, you know, and did, you know, implemented Sitka, and then did, you know, Cape Cod, was busy, and then going to when I made chief and went to Savannah, you know, as chief, you're supposed to kick back a little, maybe let the younger guys stay and do. No. Not when you go to Savannah, because we had 2 ready crews every day.
Oh, that's
you
right.
had Charleston,
Yep,
and you had Savannah.
Yep.
And they gave us 10 swimmers, counting the chief. So if you think about that, that's 5. You only have, let's say you had a unit and you only had 5 swimmers.
Yeah,
that's what it was like. And so it took some. I mean, so basically,
God forbid you have 1 or 2 guys on leave or hurt or something. Now you're down to 4 at each, and now you're down to 3 at each.
10 swimmers, and they each have 30 days of leave each. That's basically 1 swimmer gone for a year. You know, 300 days. You know, and then, you know, a blown knee. You know, Grabowski snow skiing, you know, blows his knee out. You know, I was actually, I can't say no.
What happened was.
That was a good trip. That was a good trip, but doing this jump, and you know, I have pictures of it. I can put it on here. I got pictures of him, because when they were towing him down, you know, in that little thing, we were just spraying them, you know, Dave Lawson and Jim. We were skiing by and just spraying snow on them as they're taking them down in the stretcher. So that's what so you get someone hurt, maybe 2 people hurt, man, you know. So I was basically, and you know what, myself, I don't, you know, other chiefs got their way. I liked it. I like to stand in the duty. So I was basically, as a chief, I was 1 and 4, 1 and 3, and sometimes port and starboard. Wow. If the guys had to go to EMT school, they had to go to, or not EMT school, but research and stuff. You know, you had times where, you know, and we stood tons of duty there, man.
Yeah.
Like,
good for you.
Know,
like that.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. Which is but that's appreciative to the guys that are below you as well, because one, you're leading by example, and just the fact that you're in there all the time it's just like, wow, good leader. Well done. It was, you know, to me, it wasn't even a question, you know, it wasn't a if and the other chiefs, like the AD, or whatever they are now, AVTs and all that, AET,
you know, other chiefs,
and AMT. Yep.
Well, when I was in Sitka, when I was in Savannah, when they changed everything. So the ADs, AMs, all that, those chiefs were like, at chiefs meetings, they're like, "Hey, Hathaway, you know, you're standing on stage, you're making us look bad." And I'm like, I said, "No, I'm not, guys. You guys don't have to stand duty." I said, "How many how many flight mechs do we have at this unit?" And they're like, "Oh, you know, we've got almost 100, you know." And I'm like, "Hey," I said, "I got 10. And I really, right now, I'm down to 6. Yeah. I got 2 ready crews every day." I said, "It's apples and oranges, man." I said, it's nothing on you guys. You guys need to be, you have to be here, you know, to get the work done, keep these planes flying and everything. Yeah. I have to be standing duty. So we're never, luckily, my biggest thing was I never had to go to command and say, "We don't have a swimmer," you know, for
that's
this
awesome.
Duty, you know, that was my biggest goal, you know, and it wasn't easy sometimes, you know.
You ended up going port and starboard, 24 on, 24 off.
You go home, then you come right back in, and that happened not a lot, but enough time, quite a few times.
Yeah.
Know? So and at one time it was Christmas time, and you know, these guys I'm like, I was staying, and all these guys had these plans. I'm like, so I ended up with Christmas duty. And my wife's like, "Really? I thought make the chief." I said, "I'm not going to switch somebody out of their duty section just so I don't have to stand it on Christmas." You know, I said, so it's so funny because it happened to be the Charleston duty, and I showed up to go to Charleston, and the pilots are looking at me like, what, how to, Yeah, I mean, I'm with two JGs, you know.
That is
and
awesome.
you know, the most junior flight mech, and I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Come on.
But I tell you what, there's something that I learned in the Coast Guard, though, as a chief and as all the experience I had in search, you know, rescue. It was really, you know, it's something the Coast Guard we do. We, you know, once you get a guy really as a flight mech, really qualified, really know what he's doing, by that time he's a first class.
Correct.
So you yank him out of the plane, standing duty, and now he's a watch captain. He's no longer flying as a flight mech, you know. So you always have these younger guys. So me as a chief, sometimes on some of these flights, like in Savannah one time, we're going to look for two guys that the Fish and Game had seen the day before. There was a storm that night.
Yeah.
The guys didn't show back up, reported overdue. So we're taking off, and the pilots, you know, the way the current's going, they're going to go out to the inlet and start doing this certain search. And I'm sitting back there, and I'm just like, you know, I get on my ICS, and I'm like, swimmer, pilot, you know, I said, why don't we do a little lap around where the last place they were seen, you know, just on our way out.
Yeah.
And they're quiet for a minute. They're like, yeah, chief, you know, that's probably a good idea. And sure enough, man, we go over, and there's the boat upside down. You know, we didn't find the guys, but they're probably, because, you know, in Savannah, the water's brown.
Yeah.
You know,
so
if someone goes underwater, you're not gonna.
Right.
But that's right where the boat was the last place they were seen, you know. And so we concentrated our search from there, doing expanding square, you know.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, I think that experience, that's one thing the Coast Guard, I think the Canadians do that. You know, you're a flight crew. You're a flight crew the whole time.
Correct.
You're, you know, and then as you get older, you really get that experience, and you get that, you know, you're not afraid to speak up. Like that case with the two people in the water, you're not afraid to speak up and go, hey, this is dumb. You need to put me in the water. Like, you know, hypothermia.
Yeah.
You know, that's something, you know, that I think, you know, they should look at, but, you know, they're not going to, but, you know.
No, you make a very valid point with that, because a lot of the times, you know, you have a lot of junior guys, and myself, I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, and now I get into the aircraft, and they're looking at me for the advice, and it's like, oh, okay. So not only do I have to make sure I know my stuff, I got to study my stuff and stay up on the stuff. And I remember, like, Kurt Rebels, another mentor of mine, you know, said the same thing. He gets down to a unit, and all of a sudden the whole aircrew, pilots and flight mechanics, are looking at him like, well, what do you think, Kurt? And he's like, and at that time he said, I know I'm like the salty dog in the aircraft, and I'm the one that's going to be given the instruction and the advice.
Exactly. And I think on some of these cases, like the one in Oregon, everyone was brand new. Yeah. And yet the one that crashed and they lost, you know, everyone. And it where if you had experience, like, hey man, you know, what are we doing here? Why are we this, you know, and believe it or not, there was cases, you know how swimmers are. Oh, I want to go. I want to deploy. I want to deploy. There was cases where I'm like, look, man, you don't need the guy. They're all standing out there. He's right there. Just lower the basket down. I said, you could send me down, but it's a freighter. It's got a landing pad, you know, lower the basket down. He's ambulatory. Yeah. Have him sit in it, hold his stuff, hoist him up. Yeah. You know, it's where, you know, of course I was never afraid to go down, you know, but I'm just saying, look, this is probably the better thing. And sometimes, you know, the pilots, you're like, hey, I'm like, what are we doing here? What's our, you know, you know, and I think that having that senior guy and that experience in the back helps a lot, you know, and someone that will speak up.
And I like going down on a lot of the cases, even if it's just a quick pickup, to have an experienced guy on the ground that can radio what's going on, that can assess the situation and keep everybody from getting panicked on the ground, I think is a real key component as well. You know, and don't get me wrong, I'm all about, hey, let's just send down the basket, have them jump in and pluck them out. It saves time, it saves fuel, it saves 2 hoists. And right now, like, I would do a double up. I would go me and the victim and let's just go. So I'd go down. Yeah. So good experience.
But you know, that's the thing. Like that company, you know, Priority One or whatever. Man, they're getting all these senior guys flying. I mean, that's just they must be awesome. You know, these guys that, you know, you're taking guys who were chiefs and now they're flying as, you know, right. I think that's a pretty I'd like to see their.
Yeah,
I bet it's pretty good.
Yeah, and there are a couple companies out there. Priority One is one of them. ARS is another one. There's another company kind of brand new, which is SR3, and they're doing training as well. So you have a lot of these little training companies, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're taking all the experienced guys that have done this for years and years and years, and now bringing it to the newer age guys, which is great because you take not only lessons learned that you've walked away from, that you didn't have any issues with, that there were no reports of, and you bring that to the table for a training and you say, this is what I've experienced. This is what we're doing. And this is the best practice to do it. And this is why. And there's so much that goes with that. It's awesome.
It's a great story. In San Diego, when Katrina happened, I was in San Diego when Katrina happened. Okay. I was a warrant officer. I worked in public work, but I was over there and I'm like, hey, good luck, guys. What are you doing? All this and that and other thing. And, we're kind of following the cases. And Jeff Tonks, who was at the time a senior chief, Station Mobile, they had him. And I heard a couple of guys go, why are they sending him, man? The younger guys need this experience and stuff like that. And I'm like, listen, you're right. They need experience. But this is the Super Bowl.
Right.
You're not going to play the second string guy to get experience. You want your top, quarterback in there or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I said, this is the deal, dude. You get your experience other times, but don't say that. Why are these guys taking these cases? These chiefs and senior chiefs, and I'm like, because that's you want your best in there. And they got the most experience, and they're going to come up with the best way to approach a hoist or do something like that, And I'm like, that's why. And they were like, oh, okay. They accepted it, Well,
and when Jeff went down to Katrina for that whole thing, when he came back, he was, and I did not go to Katrina. So let me state that I was in Humboldt Bay, California at the time. And we were, there was only 2 guys that went from our shop down to Katrina. But I do know that while Jeff was there, when he went out, he came back and was briefing everybody about how things were going to happen based on all of experience, which is goes hand in hand. You can't I'm all about learning, and everybody has to start from ground zero.
Right.
We all have to start there, but you have to be able to take the guys that have the experience and implement it to the new guys and say, here's why. And there's, love it.
Yeah, that's why the things like you and Roger Wilson are doing and training these guys, dude, that's invaluable. Dude, that's, you got all this experience. You're really good at what you do. And these guys are getting, I hope they know they're getting their money's worth, man. I'll tell you right now, by hiring you guys. They really are. No, they really are. That's probably why these businesses are a success. And they're, like you said, there's a new one coming out. That's why they're a success, because of guys like you, and they're cherry picking off the Coast Guard, training all these guys. they're taking flight mechs too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with Pat Barber, but him and I worked together for years.
Oh, Pat Barber.
Oh, you do? I'll tell you what, I'm hoping to have him on here too. He was my hoist operator mentor, and that guy, he taught me so much about hoisting.
In Sitka, I loved being a flight mech. I did. I thought it was, getting trained and doing that and flying in the door. And, that old story goes all the way back to Clearwater, that guy in the door.
Yeah.
I finally got to be it, I was
that
guy in the door. And everywhere I went, even when I transitioned to 65s, on my own, I went and got my flight mech, qualification.
Awesome.
And it was easy to get your swimmer qual, because when you go out on a swimmer flight, you're like, let me jump in and get a couple of these, we have enough fuel. They're like, yeah, can I get a couple of hoists? Yeah. So I was a flight mech swimmer qual, so
that is awesome. Swimmers. So that did not happen to me until I got out of the Coast Guard. And I wish I had been able to do it in the Coast Guard, because I think it's a valuable lesson for the swimmers to be hoist qualified. And there's a lot of, what people don't understand is, as a swimmer, you have a ton of work to do on the ground. But there's a lot of work that the hoist operator has to do, organizing the cabin, getting gear in, getting gear out, and don't give me, I don't want to take away from the pilots either, because they have a ton of stuff going on. It is a full crew mentality. Incredible. But like you have to take every, I'm going to say every ingredient or every piece of the pie in order to make the whole. And you can't.
Yep.
I love being
It's
a hoist
definitely,
operator. I
it's
love it.
absolutely a team thing, you know,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, you know,
So.
that's, of course, you know, you always have the banter between the flight mechs, and it's good banter, you know.
Of course. Yeah.
You know, you can say this to you and me. We say we love them and they're the best ever, but you can't ever say it to them because
No,
you know, we have this rivalry thing.
Yeah, let it go to their head. Oh, geez.
I used to say to them, but I was a flight mech. I used to say to them, I said, man, right here, that's your exercise right there.
Little
Running
thumb
that
movement.
hoist. I said, we could probably train monkeys to do it, but we can't carry enough bananas. That's the only reason. And it's all good fun. And then they come back and go, yeah, you guys are prima donnas, this, that, and everything. Hey, you know, I was the guy too that when the swimmer, the SDAP, special duty assignment pay, came out, I was a representative because I never got, you know, I didn't get that till the end. And
well, thank you for that too.
Yeah. Well, when they had their big thing in Washington, all the COs, and they were going to address it, I had to present the case to our CO to take, and he goes, you need to convince me because I'm against it right now. So he called me in and says, you got to convince me. And I'm like, well, and then there was a EO that came in there also, that was a commander. He was also against it. So it was me, this first class, against this commander, Seckler, who was a very smart guy. And Seckler's big thing was, you know, I think flight engineers should get special duty assignment pay, you know?
Yeah.
And I went to him. I think what blew him away was, I agree. I said, why don't they? Why aren't you guys voting on that, you know, too? I said, they absolutely need special duty. What they do is way more than a load master, drop master. They're up there, you know. I said, that's a specialty skill that they have to stay honed in, you know, to work. I said, I agree with you 100%. Well, I said, and look, once we get the swimmer pay, you got your foot in the door. Now we try to get the flight mechs. You know, I mean you know, the flight engineers. And then I went into them. I'm like, look, man, for us to be a swimmer, we have to maintain our EMT quals. I said, we go on vacation, we just can't smoke and Coke. That's what Chief Farmer used to say. You know, drink Coke, drink Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Clarify
smoke
that.
Cigarettes. You can't just. I don't want to make that clear. Though. He was talking about Coca-Cola. He says. So he said you had to maintain a certain standard. So when you came back, you could pass your PT test, right? So every week, right? You have to do that. You had to maintain it for us to be qualified swimmers. And so, what is a flight mech? You know, they come back, they just start standing duty. You know, basically they need two. They could do if they went on December 31st and January 1st, 2 days, they could be qualified for the whole year. You know, if they got their mins at the end of the year and first, basically 2 days, they're qualified for the whole year. They've got everything they needed. We have to pass weekly, monthly, you know, certifications. We have to stay in shape. We can't just go on vacation and lay around and, you know, eat ding dongs, you know?
Yeah,
so,
no.
And I said, and then, you know, and then the captain, and Captain Seckler, our Commander Seckler at the time, he was like, very good case, touche. He says, man, I agree with you. And then the captain, he was like, you did it. You convinced me. We're good. You know, I'm going to go and I'm going to vote for it and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's man. So you had a really big impact on the entire rate, which is awesome for all of us. And, you know, a lot of our stuff and stories and whatnot have made it around the world. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
So
no, it's, you know, it was, well, we were some of the, you know, and I wasn't afraid to talk, man. I said, the guys, I wish I had it with me because I'd love to break it out right now. In my flight bag, I got this little switchblade. It's a comb. It's a mustache comb. You hit it. So we come back and the press would be out there. And the pilots are like, okay, who wants to talk to the press? And I pull that out of my bag and I'm like, I got this. And I'm like, I'm gonna talk to him, man. As you can tell, I'm a jabber nut, man. I'm sitting
Oh
there,
my gosh.
I rip that thing out and do my mustache. You know, I'm like, yeah, I got this. I'm gonna do it.
Just flip your hair. Just flip that hair. Come on.
Yeah.
There I was.
Yeah, there I was. Well, you had to be really careful what you said to the press, man, because they would take stuff out of context. You had to be, that's why I knew you had to be real careful. Because there was a guy in Cape Cod one time, he was reading about Vietnam, and when he was talking to the press, he goes, "Man, I can't imagine what those guys in Vietnam and what they had to deal with." You know, he says, "I can't imagine that case what I did, but I can't imagine what those guys in Vietnam had." So the big headline was, "Rescue swimmer has Vietnam flashbacks." We gave crap all the time. Man, you have to be careful what you say to them, man, because they would take stuff and just, run with it, So.
Oh my God, that's
but
awesome.
Good times, man, for sure. And like I said, I got, we could go on stories, different SAR cases, and I'll tell you what, some good stuff.
I'd be happy to have you back. This has been awesome. I appreciate it.
I can tell you about Mudman in Charleston, and there's some other goodies about the guys in the life raft in Cape Cod. I swam up. Their boat's on fire. They're in a life raft. It's 0 degrees out, and I swim over, and there's all these guys in a life raft, and pop up, and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Boy, that's probably about the dumbest question." They all kind of look at each other, look at their boat burning, and I'm like, "Okay, quick. Is anybody hurt?" I was thinking, I said, that was a stupid question.
Oh my God!
They're floating out in the Atlantic Ocean in a life raft with their boat on fire. Hey, how you doing? Wait for one guy to say, could be better.
My gosh.
Yeah. That's something awesome. Else.
All right. But Steve, I'm gonna call you back then, and we'll do this again for sure.
Yeah, maybe you could get Roger and I, man, because we could tell you some Hawaii stories that are, pretty good.
Oh, that would be
we
awesome.
Had a great crew there.
Okay.
Unbelievable crew.
I'd love it.
And I got to tell you, everywhere, Cape Cod, Hawaii, and Savannah. The group we had in Savannah was, when I showed up there, I said, "Hey, who likes to snow ski?" And all these guys raised their hands,
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, you and you." And I'm like, "Okay, when's your research?" And I went back and I'm like, "When's your research due?" And I'm like, "Oh, good. So at one point I said, "Okay, you guys, man, we're going to go for this long weekend. You care if you stay on duty, port and starboard?" I said, "Well, I'll cover you when you come back." This, I was wheeling and dealing, man.
Awesome.
So, long story short, Gary Strebe, Dave Lawson, Wilson, and Jim Stanier and myself, we all went to research together, So we went to research in Petaluma, and they always had research on a 3-day weekend. It was right before in February, I don't know if President's Day, I forget what holiday. But I rented a condo at the snow in, Tahoe. I rented a condo.
Yeah.
And had hot tub and everything. And I'm like, "Okay, guys, we all pitched in, paid for the condo. We've got to rent a car."
Yep.
Did research. Thursday.
Right,
if we get done, we're out of here Thursday. Boom, we're heading over to Tahoe. We get our skis. We're skiing for 3 days. We got our FM radios. We had got these.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so we're talking, "Hey, man, where are you at? Okay, let's meet for lunch, and we're in Tahoe. There's no water. Those radios only go for 12 miles. It didn't hurt to use the FM. Nope. We weren't stepping on anybody, man, So we were like, awesome. We carried our radios right here and stuff, And then that night we would get together and we'd get in the hot tub, but there was snow all around the hot tub, and you had a rule, man. If you got up to use the bathroom and came back and didn't bring a beer for everyone, you had to sit in the snow chair. So we made this chair, and you had to sit in it for like 15 seconds. So you sat there, you're like 15, 14, 30, you're just like, God, didn't you jump in the hot? It was, but come to find out, I don't know, to this about like 3 years ago. I mean, dude, I started this in 90, I don't know. They're still doing it. They're still, the guys are going skiing attached to their, but I started that long time ago.
Yeah,
man.
It's awesome.
It was a great time. And then we'd leave on Sunday go to San Francisco, stay at the Marine Memorial, which was a Marine hotel in San Francisco.
Right downtown.
And then fly out the next morning.
Oh,
it worked out perfect, man.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, a lot of the guys still do it. Yeah, I'd love to go into research.
A lot of hard times, a lot of good times.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Holy cow.
But I know I'm probably going on here. I could go on forever and bore you, but maybe we can do this another time too. And
absolutely. You know what? Let's sign off, and then you and I will pick another date that we can, and hopefully we can get Roger on here with you. So you, me, and him. That would be awesome. Yeah,
that would be fun. I can hit him up. He's, like I said, right down the street. But he's, he's like you. He's gone a lot. So
that's okay.
Because goes away for a week and stuff. So.
Yeah.
But
well, I can't thank you enough, Steve. I appreciate it. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of here. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Real ResQ podcast. Please take a minute and, as my daughters like to tell me all the time, like and subscribe. Oh yeah, I appreciate it. So I'm pulling chocks and taking off. But before I go, if anyone out there has a rescue story and would be willing to share it, I would be humbled and honored to have you as a guest. Or if you have any questions about rescue or anything else here that we talk about, please send me an email at therealresq@gmail.com. That's TheRealResQ@gmail.com. Or you can also check us out on our Instagram page at The Real ResQ, and that's at TheRealResQ. And for all of you standing the watch today, remember, when that SAR alarm goes off, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. Until next time, stay safe out there, everybody.